Hello, hello. Welcome back to another gift of wisdom. My name is Sinise. Today I want to share just a few minutes with you about the impeccable timing of the Lord and the rewards for the just. The impeccable timing of the Lord and the rewards for the just. When we think that it is over for us, when we think that we have come to maybe the last possible moment before a setback or before a great loss, we can know that God is coming through for us. He is going to come through at the right time and in the right way. He's going to come through. Though he may delay, he may tarry to the point where it seems like it may not happen. Know that God is coming through, no matter what it is. And he's never worried when he sees or he hears the enemy planning our downfall or targeting us. God is never worried because he knows. Jeremiah 29:11, he knows the plans that he has for us to prosper us and to not harm us, the plans to give us hope and to give us a future. And he's not worried because he also knows that Isaiah 54:17 says that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. No weapon. But every tongue that rises up against us in judgment shall be condemned. He knows this. And so God is never worried. And so his plans for us are right on that Kairos schedule. They're right as planned, on time, his Kairos time. So keep trusting him. Trust the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all of your ways, acknowledge him. And he will direct your path. He will show you exactly what to do, when to do it, where to go, and even who to talk to. I know from experience. And we all know the story of Esther and her uncle Mordecai, who were Jews and who were about to be killed, whose people had been sentenced to death, all of the Jews. And we know that story. I'm sure many of you probably already know, but there's a few points in there that I want to bring out today. A few things that I want to talk about in a couple of chapters. We're going to read a few scriptures in chapter 6 and also in chapter 8, but we're going to start here, chapter 6. We're going to read verses 1 through 3, and then I'm going to skip down to verse 6 and verse 10. That night the king could not sleep, so one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, "What honor or dignity has been done on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." In verse 6, so Haman came in, and the king asked him, "Well, what shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor?" Now Haman, we know, was the wicked man that worked for the king. Haman, was wicked. Now Haman thought in his heart as the king asked him, "Whom would the king delight to honor more than me?" Haman's thinking this in his heart, right? Because the king asked him, what should we do to honor a man? And Haman's thinking, well, the king would want to honor me. So Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honor, let a royal robe be brought, which the king has worn, a horse on which the king is ridden," and so on and so on. Haman starts naming all of these things that should be done to honor this special man. Verse 10, then the king said to Haman, "Hurry, take everything you just said and go do all of that for Mordecai, the Jew. Yeah, don't leave anything out. Do everything exactly the way you said to do it." So Haman, he had to do it, right? So he went and he did it all. And so we can see from this passage alone, and there are others throughout the word, but we can see through this passage right away that the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. We know this. We know this because the word tells us this, but we see it played out here. We see it played out. Okay? So keep doing the right things. Keep being upright and honest. We know that Mordecai was being honored because he had revealed plans to kill the king. There had been some plans from some men who Mordecai had overheard talking about killing the king. And so Mordecai, he revealed those plans. He revealed those plans to the king, and the king, again, wrote it in his journal, had it written in his journal. And because of it, the king said, we need to honor this man. We need to honor this man who saved my life, okay? And they saw nothing had been done. So he proceeded to do what Haman had said. And everything Haman had said to do was what Haman was planning to do for Mordecai. We know the story, right? So what I'm saying is that you never know. You never know when something you have done that's right and that's good, just being yourself, hopefully, right, is going to be recognized. It's going to be pinpointed, and it's going to be seen as something that should be honored, okay? It plays into your promotion when you're being honest and when you're being upright before the Lord, first of all. First and foremost, whatever things we do it as unto the Lord, the Bible tells us. And so know and understand that whatever we do is going to be seen of the Lord first and foremost. But if we are just being honest and upright just for the sake of it, because that's who we are and we want to do what is right before God, know that that is something that is not going to go unrewarded. That's not going to go unrecognized. And Mordecai doing that, revealing those plans, protected the king's life in revealing the plan of the enemy. And so again, it saved his life, and he wanted to reward that. And when you think about it, it happened at that time because the king couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep, and he just happened to get up and read his journal one night. He decided to read his journal, right? When you talk about timing, God knows exactly when we need to be promoted, when we need to be elevated. He knows exactly when and how to promote us, how to elevate us. He knows exactly what to do and when to do it. He knows who needs to elevate us, who needs to promote us. He knows, as it were, the butler in our life, that person that's going to open the door for us. God knows who that needs to be and when it needs to happen. God's timing is impeccable because it involves strategy. It involves strategy that is in order to protect us oftentimes and to bless us. God's timing is impeccable because it has to be impeccable and it has to be strategic in order to protect us and in order to bless us. That is what his heart is. He is trying to get things to us. He's trying to get things through us. He's trying to bless us. He's trying to use us, right? And so his timing has to be very specific, very strategic. And so we can also see this timing happening with Esther. As Esther began to plan the banquet, we all know, again, she had planned the banquet for Haman and for the king because she wanted to ask for her family, her people to be spared, their lives to be spared, right? The Jews. But Esther knew that she couldn't just come right out and just ask the king right then and there, can you save my people? What can you do? But she knew that there had to be a strategy involved here, and that they needed to come and have a meal first. It needed to be done over a meal, right? God knows strategy. But she also knew that it wasn't just that one meal. At that first meal, when she asked him to come another time, I don't know that she knew that she was going to wait. I don't know that, maybe, but I know that strategically, God knew what needed to take place and what needed to happen, and that they needed to come another time and have a meal. And so she invited them once again. So that timing there with Esther was very specific. It was very strategic. And you never know when your exposure of an enemy's plan will save your life and someone else's life. We also can see throughout these chapters that the wealth, as I said, of the sinner is laid up for the just. We know that the king honored Mordecai by replacing Haman. He basically gave Mordecai Haman's position. And Haman's position involved the ring. So we know that in chapter 8, let's read that. Chapter 8, we'll read verse 2 and then we'll skip down to verse 7 and 8. No, we'll start with verse 1. Let's just start with verse 1 and 2, and then we'll skip down to verse 7 and 8. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. Let's skip down to verse 7. Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, "Indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman." So he had given his signet ring to Mordecai. That was the signet ring he had given to Haman, right? The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. So he had given that ring now to Mordecai, and he had given Esther the permission to name Mordecai head over the house of Haman, right? Okay. Indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him. Talking about Haman, they have hanged him on the gallows because he tried to lay his hand on the Jews. Okay. You yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews as you please. The king is telling Mordecai and Esther that you can write whatever you want. Sign it. It says, you yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews as you please, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For whatever is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can reverse. Right? So they had been given all of this power, all of this influence. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. And that wealth is not just one item, one materialistic thing, I want you to know, but the wealth, it's prosperity. Okay? It is blessing, it's status, it's influence. They were given Haman's position, or Mordecai was given Haman's position. Esther was over all of it, right? Half of the kingdom. So she was over the house of Haman, and she appointed Mordecai. So you never know, again, you never know where your wealth is coming from. Okay? You never know where your wealth is coming from, but then also you never know how much status and influence and power you're going to be given. And you're going to have to know how to handle it. You're going to have to know how to work with people, how to handle people, right? You're gonna need, and by that point, hopefully you've gone through the processing of the Lord, that you're able to do that, and you're able to understand and work with people when you've been given a position such as that position, which is over a lot of people. God at that point hopefully would have, you've been allowing God to bring you to a point of where he's been able to get some things out of you, like the spirit of control. A person that's in a position like that can't have a spirit of control, or they're going to lose it just like that, right? They're going to damage a lot of people. So that wealth of the sinner is laid up for you. Know that, understand that. Also, another thing too I wanted to say is, you never know where, as I said, that wealth is coming from. It could come from a family member, just like Mordecai said, maybe you've come to the palace for such a time as this. Maybe you've come here now to save our people. Esther has now all of this influence and power, being the queen. She's in a position to save our people. She's in a position to do just about anything. And so Mordecai is saying to her, maybe you're in this position now, niece, so you can save us. And she was indeed, by God, placed in a position of power and influence where she could save the Jews. Also where she could now then promote and elevate Mordecai. God had Esther, a family member, to promote this man within the king's palace. So you never know where your wealth and blessing of prosperity is coming from. It can be a family member. So just be careful of how you treat everyone. Okay? Just like the Bible tells us to love one another. And don't be discouraged when your prayers, the answers to your prayers, seem to take a while. They seem to tarry. Don't be discouraged. Know that God's timing is impeccable, and it has everything to do with strategy and getting blessing to you and moving through you and even protecting you. My name is Sinise. Thank you for joining the gift of wisdom today. Remember, wisdom is the principal thing, so get it. Get wisdom. But in all of your getting, make sure that you get an understanding. God bless you.